AITA for hiding my billion-dollar stake to see how my in-laws would treat the ordinary me? My name is Liam Evans, and this is the story of how I watched my wife's family try to break me while I held their financial future in the palm of my hand. For 3 years, I was married to Chloe Martinez, the daughter of one of the most prominent real estate developers in Chicago. And for 3 years, I let her family believe that I was nothing more than a data analyst with modest earnings who somehow convinced their precious daughter to marry someone from a lower social class. The truth was much more complicated. The truth was that I held enough shares of the Martinez Real Estate Group to remove Arthur from his own boardroom with a single phone call, but I stayed silent, observing, waiting to see who these people really were when they thought no one important was paying attention. The dinner invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. Chloe handed me her cell phone during breakfast, showing me a text from her mom. "Eleanor wants us to come over for dinner this Friday," Chloe said, her voice tense in that way that had become normal whenever her family entered the conversation. "Just the four of us," she added. "She says it's important." I knew what important meant in the Martinez family vocabulary. It meant that Arthur had decided it was time to resolve the social embarrassment of his daughter's marriage to someone who drove a 7-year-old Honda Accord and rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood his landscapers would not even drive through. "It should be interesting," I said, keeping my voice neutral while calculating exactly how interesting that dinner could become. Chloe set her coffee cup down harder than necessary. "Liam, please do not take this the wrong way, but maybe we should just say we're busy. When my parents get this formal, it usually means they are planning an ambush." She was not wrong. In the 3 years of our marriage, Arthur and Eleanor had made their disapproval crystal clear through 1,000 little passive-aggressive cuts. The way Eleanor would mention Chloe's ex-boyfriend, Chadwick, who now ran his own successful investment firm. The way Arthur would lecture about ambitious young men in his field, always making sure I understood that I was not one of them. The carefully planned family holidays where they would seat me next to a distant teenage cousin while Chloe's other relatives, all appropriately educated and wealthy, discussed business with the adults. "No," I said firmly. "I want to see what they are planning." What Chloe did not know, what nobody knew except my lawyer and my wealth manager, was that Liam Evans, the unremarkable data analyst, was also the sole owner of Apex Strategic Ventures, the anonymous investment entity that had been steadily acquiring shares of the Martinez Real Estate Group over the last 8 years. It all started when I was 24, fresh out of MIT with a degree in financial engineering and a small inheritance from my grandfather. Most people would have bought a sports car or put a down payment on a condo. I bought shares in a struggling real estate company run by a man named Arthur Martinez, who was drowning in debt from overly ambitious projects and bad timing during the 2008 financial crisis. I had studied Arthur's company for months before making my first purchase. His fundamentals were solid and his properties were in prime locations, but his capital structure was a mess. He desperately needed liquidity, and his traditional investors were losing faith. So I started buying shares quietly, through layers of shell corporations that could not be traced back to me. Within 3 years, I owned 15% of his company. When I met Chloe at a charity auction 5 years ago, I owned 31%. By the time we got married, my stake had grown to 42%. Today, I owned 47%, making me the largest single shareholder of the Martinez Real Estate Group. Arthur Martinez worked for me. He just did not know it. Meeting Chloe was never part of any plan. I went to that auction because a client was being honored and I wanted to show my support. Chloe was there because her mother had dragged her to a high society event she had no interest in attending. We both ended up at the bar at the same time, both trying to escape painfully dull conversations. She made me laugh with her perfect, sarcastic imitation of her mother's socialite friends. I made her laugh by admitting I had no idea which fork was for the salad. We talked for 3 hours straight, and when she gave me her number, she issued a warning. Fair warning. My family is kind of intense about money, status, and all that superficial stuff. If that is going to bother you, we should probably just call it a night. I smiled and told her the truest thing I could without revealing the entire truth. Money doesn't define who a person is, their character does. 3 months later, I asked her to marry me. 6 months after that, we were married in a small ceremony at City Hall that Eleanor desperately tried to turn into a lavish society wedding. Chloe refused, choosing a simple, Meaningful celebration with 50 people we actually cared about. Arthur gave a wedding toast that barely disguised his profound disappointment that his only daughter had married so far beneath her potential. I smiled through the entire speech, knowing that the man making jokes about my modest career could only afford that expensive champagne thanks to the capital injections from my investment fund. The game I was playing was risky. I knew it. Chloe sometimes worried about money in ways she never had to before. Our apartment was nice, but she grew up in a sprawling mansion. Our vacations were road trips to national parks because I could not justify European getaways on a data analyst's salary. She adapted better than I could have ever expected, never complaining, always insisting that our life together was more important than the lifestyle her parents provided. But I saw the tension it created for her, especially during family functions when Eleanor made backhanded comments about Chloe's new, simpler life. "Why do you let them treat you like that?" Chloe asked me once, after a particularly brutal Thanksgiving where Arthur spent 20 minutes explaining the basics of real estate syndication to me, as if I did not understand every facet of his business better than he did himself. "Because your dad's opinion of me doesn't define who I am," I told her. "And because I know something he doesn't. The most powerful person in any room is often the one nobody is paying attention to." Friday arrived with that crisp autumn chill that settles over Chicago in October. Chloe spent an hour getting ready, changing outfits 3 times before settling on something that was respectful of her parents' formality without looking like she was trying too hard. I put on a pair of chinos and a button-down shirt, the uniform of acceptable mediocrity that Arthur had come to expect from me. The Martinez estate was in Lincoln Park, a monument to wealth that always felt more like a corporate headquarters than a home. The long driveway wound through perfectly manicured gardens before depositing visitors at a front entrance that looked like it belonged on a European palace. Chloe's hand found mine as we walked to the door. "Whatever they are planning," she whispered, "just remember that I chose you. Nothing they say or do can change that." Eleanor opened the door herself, which was unusual. Normally, their housekeeper would handle such duties. "Chloe, darling," she said, hugging her daughter with the kind of careful affection designed not to smudge her makeup. "Liam." My name came out clipped and efficient, as if she were acknowledging an unfortunate but necessary agenda item. The dining room was set for 4, but the sheer formality of the table suggested something more than a casual family meal. There were crystal glasses, porcelain plates that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and enough silverware to confuse anyone who had not been raised to know which forks served which specific purpose. Arthur was already seated at the head of the table, wearing a full suit despite being in his own home. That was Arthur, always performing, always reminding everyone of his status. "Liam," he said, standing to shake my hand with the firm, slightly too long grip of a man trying to establish dominance. "Glad you could make it." As if I had a choice. As if his invitation was anything other than a summons. The first course arrived, and the conversation remained sterile and safe. Eleanor asked Chloe about her work at the nonprofit she managed. Arthur mentioned a new high-rise project in the West Loop. I played my part perfectly, asking just enough questions to seem politely interested, but not so many as to seem genuinely knowledgeable about the real estate market I secretly dominated. Then, as the main course was being cleared, Arthur produced a leather legal folder, the kind that meant business. "Liam," he began, his voice taking on the baritone he probably used in boardrooms. "Eleanor and I wanted to talk to you about something important. Something that concerns Chloe's future." Chloe's hand found mine under the table, squeezing it tightly. She knew this was the ambush, even if she did not know what form it would take. "We have been thinking a great deal about Chloe's well-being," Eleanor added, dabbing her lips with a linen napkin. "She gave up so much when she married you. Her lifestyle, her social opportunities, her future security." I felt Chloe stiffen beside me. "Mom, we've talked about this. I am happy." "Let us finish, honey," Arthur said, raising a hand to silence her. "We are not here to criticize. We are here to propose a solution." He opened the folder, revealing a stack of legal documents and, on top, a cashier's check. Even from across the table, I could see it was for a substantial amount. "Liam, I am going to be direct, because I respect frankness in business. You seem like a decent young man, but let's be honest about the situation. You married above your station. That is not an insult. It is a simple fact. Chloe could have had anyone. She chose you. And we have tried to accept that choice. But, Eleanor continued, we cannot stand by and watch our daughter struggle financially because of your pride. So, we have come up with a solution that benefits everyone. Arthur slid the folder across the table toward me. Inside was a pre-drafted agreement for the dissolution of our marriage, and stapled to the front was that check for $500,000. This is more money than you would likely see in 10 years at your current job, Arthur said. His voice was laced with the supreme confidence of a man who had never been told no by someone he considered an inferior. Sign the papers, take the money, and move on with your life. You will be set up far better than you were before you met Chloe, and Chloe can return to the life she was meant to live. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. Chloe looked as though she had been physically struck. Eleanor was studying her manicure, as if the matter was already settled. Arthur wore a faint, satisfied smile, the smile of a man who had just solved a messy problem with the elegant application of money. I looked at the check. $500,000. To the man I was pretending to be, it would have been a life-altering sum. And that was the beautiful irony of the moment. The man offering me $500,000 to leave his daughter was only solvent enough to make that offer because of the capital I had injected into his failing company over the last 8 years. It is a very generous offer, I said at last, keeping my voice perfectly level. Arthur's smile widened. I knew you would see reason. Just so I understand the terms, I continued, removing the check from the folder and holding it between my fingers. You want me to end my marriage to Chloe in exchange for $500,000. It is a dissolution, Eleanor corrected smoothly. Much cleaner than a divorce. No fault, no messy feelings. Just a mutual acknowledgement that the marriage was a mistake from the start. Chloe shot up from her chair, the legs scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. This is insane. You cannot just buy people. Darling, sit down, Arthur commanded. The adults are talking. I am 28 years old, Dad. I am an adult, and this is my husband, who you are trying to pay off to leave me. How dare you? But Arthur was not even looking at her anymore. His eyes were locked on me, confident he had already won. Liam understands how the world works, don't you, Liam? Sometimes, money is just the most efficient way to solve a problem. I placed the check carefully on the table, smoothing it against the white linen. Then, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. Before I give you my answer, I said, I need to make a quick call. You will want to hear this. Liam, what are you doing? Chloe asked, her voice a mix of confusion and fear. Making sure everyone at this table is operating with the same set of facts, I replied. I dialed my lawyer, David Chun, who I knew would be on standby. David had managed my affairs for years and knew exactly what this call meant. David, it is Liam Evans. I am at a dinner with the Martinez family, and an interesting offer has been made. Could you please pull up the current ownership structure of the Martinez Real Estate Group? There was a brief pause. Yes, of course. One moment. Arthur was frowning now. What does your lawyer have to do with any of this? Everything, I said simply. David's voice came back on the line, and I switched the phone to speaker mode. David, could you please outline the current major shareholders of the Martinez Real Estate Group for everyone present? David's voice filled the opulent dining room, professional and precise. Certainly. The Martinez Real Estate Group has 100 million shares of common stock outstanding. The largest shareholder is an entity called AITA Strategic Ventures, which owns 47 million shares, representing a 47% stake in the company. The second largest shareholder is Arthur Martinez, with a personal holding of 18 million shares, or 18%. The remaining 35% is distributed among various institutional and private investors. Arthur was staring at my phone as if it were an alien artifact. What is this nonsense? What does some investment fund have to do with? David, I interrupted gently. Could you please clarify for Mr. Martinez who is the sole proprietor of AITA Strategic Ventures? There was a beat of silence before David delivered the final blow. AITA Strategic Ventures is a private holding company. It is wholly owned by its founder, Liam Evans. The firm was established 8 years ago to manage Mr. Evans's portfolio. The current market value of his position in the Martinez Real Estate Group is approximately $1.2 billion. The silence that followed was of a different quality entirely. It was not the silence of tension or awkwardness. It was the silence of a universe collapsing and being rebuilt from scratch in a matter of seconds. Chloe's mouth was hanging open. Eleanor had gone completely pale. Arthur looked like he had just been hit by a freight train. "I do not understand," Arthur said finally, his voice a choked whisper. I picked up the check from the table and held it out to him. "This is for $500,000. You are offering me $500,000 to walk away from your daughter." I let that hang in the air for a moment. "Arthur, I own 47% of your company. My stake is currently valued at $1.2 billion. Do you understand what that means?" David's voice continued from the speakerphone, a calm, dispassionate narrator to Arthur's implosion. "It means Mr. Evans is the controlling shareholder of the Martinez Real Estate Group. His voting power, when combined with aligned minority shareholders, gives him effective control of the board. In practical terms, Liam Evans could remove Arthur Martinez from his position as CEO with a simple majority vote at the next board meeting." Arthur's face had cycled from ghost white to a blotchy, furious red. "This is impossible. Apex. I thought it was a fund out of New York." He stammered, his carefully constructed authority crumbling before my eyes. "You thought it was a faceless institutional investor," I finished for him. "And you never asked too many questions, because the capital kept flowing in right when you needed it most. 8 years ago, your company was on the verge of bankruptcy. You could not secure financing from any major bank because everyone knew you had over-leveraged yourself on speculative projects. So when a mysterious investor started buying up your distressed shares and providing the liquidity you needed to stay afloat, you did not look too closely at where the money was coming from." I stood up and walked around the table until I was standing directly beside Arthur. "Every signature project you have completed in the last 8 years was financed with my capital. The South Loop Tower? My money. The Lincoln Yards redevelopment? My money. The portfolio of suburban office parks that saved your company during the downturn in 2015? All funded with my money." Eleanor finally found her voice. "But you are a data analyst. You live in that small apartment. You drive that old car." "I am a data analyst," I confirmed. "I analyze complex financial data for a select group of private clients." It is not a lie. It is just not the whole truth. The apartment is modest because Chloe and I chose a modest life. The car runs perfectly fine. I do not need to signal my net worth to strangers with luxury goods. Chloe was crying now, but they were tears of anger and revelation. "You have been watching them? Watching how they treated you like you were nothing, all this time, knowing you held all the cards." I could have revealed myself at any time, I agreed, my voice softening as I looked at her. But I had to know who they really were. I had to see how far they would go when they thought they held all the power. I turned my gaze back to Arthur, who was still frozen in his chair. "It turns out they would go pretty far." "Liam," Arthur began, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "I did not know. You have to understand. If I had known who you were, would it have mattered?" I shot back. "If I were exactly who you thought I was, would this offer have been any less insulting? Would trying to buy your daughter's husband be any more justifiable?" Eleanor was openly weeping now, her mascara running down her perfectly powdered cheeks. "We were just trying to protect Chloe." "Protect her?" I laughed, a short, humorless sound. "You were trying to control her. There is a very big difference." I took out my phone again and opened my email client. With a few taps, I sent a message I had drafted months ago, waiting for the right moment. "I have just sent an email to the corporate secretary and the board of directors of the Martinez Real Estate Group. It calls for an emergency shareholder meeting on Monday morning. The agenda is simple, a vote of no confidence in the current CEO." Arthur lurched to his feet. "You cannot do that. The board is loyal to me. They know what I built. They know what we built together," I corrected him calmly. "And they also know that 47% of the voting shares are calling for a change in leadership. I have already had quiet conversations with the other large shareholders. They are ready for a change. When we vote on Monday, you will be removed as CEO. The board will appoint an interim executive team while we search for a permanent replacement." "But this is my company," Arthur yelled, his composure completely gone, replaced by raw, primal panic. "I built it from nothing." "No," I said, my voice cutting through his rage. "You built it to the edge of ruin. I saved it. And I did it while you treated me like I was not worthy of breathing the air at your dinner table. I turned to Chloe, who was looking at me as if for the first time. I am sorry I did not tell you sooner. I wanted to 1,000 times, but I needed to know if your family would ever accept me for who I am, not for what I have. Tonight, I got my answer. Liam, she whispered, her eyes wide. Why? Why let them humiliate you for so long? Because humiliation is temporary, but character is permanent. Tonight, your parents showed me who they really are. They put a price on our marriage. They valued their social standing more than your happiness. I needed you to see that, too, without any doubt. I picked up the $500,000 check one last time and, with deliberate precision, tore it in half, then in quarters. I do not want your money, Arthur. I never did. I just wanted to be part of your family. I wanted a chance to prove that I could love your daughter for who she is, but you could not see past my bank statement. All you saw was someone you decided was beneath you. David's voice spoke again from the phone. Liam, shall I proceed with the official board notifications? I looked at Arthur, who had collapsed back into his chair, his face buried in his hands. I looked at Eleanor, clutching her pearls as if they were a life raft. And I looked at Chloe, my wife, who deserved so much more than parents who measured love in dollar signs. Yes, David, I said finally. Proceed with everything. It is time for new leadership. The drive home was silent for the first 10 minutes. Chloe sat in the passenger seat of my old Honda, watching the city lights of Chicago blur past the window. Finally, she spoke. How long have you been planning this? I was not planning anything, I said honestly. I bought shares in your dad's company years before I ever met you. It was a smart, undervalued asset. Meeting you, falling in love with you, that was just luck. The best luck of my life, but luck all the same. But you could have told me. At any point in the last 3 years, you could have told me. I could have, I agreed. But then would you have ever been sure that I married you for you, and not for your family's connections? Would you have truly believed that I loved you for who you are, and not what you represented? She was quiet for a long moment. I do not know, she admitted softly. Maybe not at first. I needed you to know, without a shadow of a doubt, that I chose you when I thought I had nothing to gain. I needed your family to show their true colors. And tonight, they did. What happens now? She asked. With my dad's company? With my parents? The company will be fine, I assured her. Better than fine. I am going to install a professional management team that prioritizes sustainable growth over ego. Your dad will be offered a paid advisory role, if he wants it, though with significantly reduced authority. And my parents? I sighed. That is up to you, Chloe. They are your parents. I will never make you choose between us. But I am also not going to pretend that what they tried to do tonight was acceptable. She reached across the console and took my hand. I choose you. I have always chosen you. Even when I thought you were just a data analyst with a reliable sedan and a big heart. Especially then? I asked. Especially then, she confirmed. Because that man loved me without an agenda. That man chose me when he thought I was just a girl with a complicated family. That part was real, Liam. That is what matters. We pulled into the garage of our apartment building, the modest building that had been our home for 3 years. Tomorrow, I could buy us a penthouse on the Gold Coast. We could move to a mansion in Winnetka that would make her parents' estate look like a guest house. But looking at Chloe in the dim light of the garage, I realized we did not need any of that. Let's keep the apartment, I said suddenly. She smiled for the first time since dinner began. Maybe we can finally buy it instead of renting. But I like our life, Liam. I like being normal. I like knowing that our happiness does not depend on a zip code or the car we drive. And the money? She asked. $1.2 billion is a lot to just ignore. We will not ignore it. We are going to do good with it. Your nonprofit is about to get a very large, anonymous donation. We will fund community programs, create scholarships, and build things that actually help people. For young people like you were? She asked softly. For young people who have the talent and the drive, but not the lucky break my grandfather gave me. Yes. That Monday, the board meeting went exactly as I had planned. Arthur was removed as CEO by an 82% vote. He sat at the far end of the long conference table, a diminished figure, watching as the board members who had flattered him for years voted to strip him of his power. Eleanor called Chloe 19 times that day. Chloe let every call go to voicemail. The next day, a letter arrived by courier. It was a handwritten note from Eleanor. Chloe, I do not expect you to forgive us. What we did was unforgivable. We were wrong. Terribly, horribly wrong. Your father is devastated. Not just because of the company, but because he has lost you. Because he discovered that the son-in-law he disdained is the man who saved everything he ever built. Please, when you are ready, can we talk? I promise. No more agendas, no more checks. Just a mother who wants to truly understand the incredible man her daughter married. Chloe read the letter twice, then placed it on the kitchen counter. Do you think they mean it? I think they are scared, I said. And sometimes, fear makes people honest in a way comfort never can. The question is, what do you want to do? She thought for a moment. I want to give them one chance. But on our terms. In our home. With no pretense. If they can accept us for who we are, right here, then maybe there is hope. Chloe picked up her phone and sent a text. Dinner. Our place. Friday. Just family. She showed me the message before hitting send. Is that okay? It is perfect, I said. That Friday, Arthur and Eleanor arrived at our apartment looking smaller, more fragile. Arthur was in jeans and a polo shirt. Eleanor wore simple slacks and almost no makeup. They had left their armor at home. Liam, Arthur said as I opened the door. Thank you for seeing us. We sat around our small dining table, eating a pasta dish Chloe had made. There were no servers, no crystal, no performance. Just four people trying to see if anything could be salvaged from the wreckage. I owe you an apology, Arthur said at last. For every condescending remark. For every time I made you feel unwelcome. And for that check. He paused, his voice cracking. For treating you as if your worth could be measured, when you are the man who both saved my company and truly loves my daughter. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But the apology needs to go to Chloe. She is the one whose choice you disrespected. She is the one whose happiness you tried to put a price on. Arthur turned to his daughter, tears welling in his eyes. Chloe, I am sorry. I was so blinded by my own pride and my own ideas of success that I could not see what was right in front of me. You found a man of incredible character who loved you for you. That is all a father should want for his daughter, and I almost destroyed it. Eleanor reached across the table and took Chloe's hand. I spent your whole life grooming you for a certain kind of life. When you chose a different path, I took it as a rejection. But you were not rejecting me. You were choosing something real over something hollow. I am so sorry it took me this long to see it. Chloe was crying, but she did not pull her hand away. I cannot go through another night like last Friday. I cannot sit by and watch you treat Liam like he is not good enough, when he is the best man I have ever known. It will never happen again, Arthur said firmly. We are prepared to earn back your trust. Liam, I would like to take you to lunch this week. Just the two of us. I want to learn about your investment philosophy. Everything I should have been asking you for the last 3 years. I looked at Chloe, and she gave a small, hesitant nod. Lunch sounds good, I said. But Arthur, I need you to understand one thing. I did not do any of this to hurt you. I invested in your company because it was a good business decision. I am not going to apologize for being successful at something you did not even know I was playing. I would never expect you to, he replied. I am just hoping you will teach me. Because it seems I have been running my own company without ever understanding who was really keeping it alive. 3 months later, the Martinez Real Estate Group announced a major, successful restructuring. Arthur stayed on the board as a senior advisor, but the day-to-day operations were run by a new, dynamic CEO who took the company to new heights. The stock price was up 40%. Chloe's nonprofit received an anonymous $50 million grant from the newly established Evans Family Foundation. Arthur and Eleanor came to dinner at our apartment every other week. They were learning to be parents, not patrons. Arthur even traded in his Bentley for a Lexus, joking that if a billionaire could be happy in a Honda, he could learn a little humility. The story of this stealth billionaire was a minor topic in the business press for a few weeks, but I declined all interviews. What happened at that dinner table was not a business story. It was a human story. It was about family, values, and what is left when you strip away the performance of wealth and status. 6 months after that fateful dinner, Chloe and I were on the small balcony of our apartment, watching the city lights. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Letting them treat you that way for so long. Not for a second, I said honestly. Because now we know. We know your parents' love for you is stronger than their pride. We know that you chose me for me. And I know that I do not need anyone's approval to be who I am. And who are you? she asked, a smile playing on her lips. I am Liam Evans. I am a data analyst. I am an investor. I am your husband. And I am the man who proved that the most powerful person in the room is often the one no one sees coming. She kissed me then, and the city twinkled below us like a sea of infinite possibilities. Somewhere across town, Arthur Martinez was probably studying market reports, learning his own business from the ground up. And here, in our apartment that we chose, we were rich in the only way that truly matters. We had each other, we had the truth, and we had a future built on something far more solid than money could ever buy. Because in the end, it was not the envelope that changed everything. It was the moment people show you who they truly are and the choice you make in response. I chose love, I chose integrity, and I chose to prove that being underestimated is the greatest advantage you can have. When no one expects you to win, the victory is that much sweeter. Comment: I hope this story leaves you with the same quiet strength it left me. Your worth is something you define for yourself, not something others get to place a price tag on. Setting boundaries is not an act of aggression. It is an act of profound self-respect. Even when you hold all the cards, the most powerful move is often choosing to build rather than break. Real healing can begin when people are finally willing to meet you on your terms and in your truth. Sometimes, the loudest statement you can make is choosing peace over proving a point. We are all responsible for the environment we allow around us. I encourage you to think about where you can hold your space with more integrity and grace. Always remember that your value is inherent. May you always carry that quiet strength within you. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.